God knocks at my door seeking a home for his son. Rent is cheap, I say. I don't want to rent. I want to buy, says God. I'm not sure I want to sell, but you might come in and look around. I think I will, says God. I might let you have a room or two. I like it, says God, I'll take two. You might decide to give me more someday. I can wait, says God. I'd like to give you more, but it's a bit difficult. I need some space for myself. I know, says God, but I'll wait. I like what I see. I'd like to give you the whole house, but I'm not sure. Think on it, says God. I wouldn't put you out. Your house would be mine and my son, and we would live in it. You'd have more space than you'd ever had before. I don't understand, I say. I know, says God, but I can tell you about that. You'll have to discover it for yourself. That can only happen if you let me have the whole house. A bit risky, I say. Yes, says God, but try me. I'm not sure, I'll let you know, I say. I can wait, says God. I like what I see. Margaret Halasco writes that poem, and it really captures the relationship that people have with God. It captures the relationship that Moses, in a sense, has with God. Moses, in the next chapter, after what Stephanie read, says simply this: standing before the burning bush, he hears a voice. Moses, Moses. He turns and says, here I am, Lord. Here I am. That's the knock at the door, asking how many rooms God can have. It's not easy to be Moses. It's not easy to be you and I either, isn't it? We live our lives, and there's a lot going on that makes us nervous, afraid, fearful. Moses, who had grown up or been brought up as an Egyptian prince, was living a pretty good life. He decides to risk that and go out amongst the people, only to be outed, if you will, that he's a Hebrew, that he's a murderer. That puts him on the run. I wonder how often we feel like we're on the run. Who's going to find us out? I often say I'm waiting for someone to come through that door and go, give me the keys. We know who you are. Who has a past? Who has a history? Who is waiting for someone to say, you're no good? Moses felt that way. Moses, afraid and ashamed of who he was, went on the run. But he runs into God. God doesn't call him by the names he's afraid of. God doesn't say, what's this? How are you doing that? How do you live your life? God says, Moses, Moses. A soft enough tone for Moses to start looking around and see a burning bush. And his answer is, here I am. We too in our lives have slayed some Egyptians and been threatening toward our true selves. We have run and we have hidden. We have started over in strange lands, longing for a place amongst our people. amongst all people, longing for a place with God. God knocks at the door, and we have to recognize that she's not asking for something in her invitation. She's making an offer in a giving manner, and it is for us to accept. We know who we are in our hearts. It's just a matter of it being revealed and uncovered. It's waiting for a Sunday when someone says you're perfect just as you are. It's for the world waiting for you to say, here I am. We, just like Moses, just like everyone, stand before God who is not a reflection of Pharaoh and not a reflection of Solomon. A God with a name, a God's own, that cannot be uttered by anyone else. A God who is not a reflection of any of us. A God who is not credentialed in the temple or empire, unknown in the courts, and unwelcome in so many corners. If we search our lives, we can see the places where God, it seems, is not invited to the table. Because God begins with an attentiveness to the cries of the marginalized. In making God personal, the writer of Exodus says that there's a name for God, and that name is Yahweh. And that the relationship, when he talks about, I'm the God of Isaac, and I'm the God of Jacob, and I'm the God of those who came before, is that we are longtime friends. I'm not the God from far off. I'm not the one that is in the temple for the Pharaoh that you have to light something to. I'm always here. And I hear it when you cry. I hear it when you suffer. I hear it when there's pain. And I send you help. Moses, after he says, here I am, opens the door. You got to be careful when you open the door, don't you? When you hear a knock, you got to be wondering, who's on the other side? And so when he says, here I am, then he says, come no closer. Remove the sandals from your feet, for the place on which you are standing is holy ground. Any old mountain where God knocks on your door is holy ground. It might be Maine. It might be Alamucci. It might be Mount Olive. It might be Tobacco. It might even be Newton on the soccer field. Wherever it is, you are on holy ground. Then the Lord said, I have observed the misery of my people who are in Egypt. I have heard their cry of suffering. Indeed, I know their suffering. I have come down to deliver them from the Egyptians and to bring them out of the land of the good and broad land, the land of milk and honey. Guess who he's sending? Moses. I wonder if we can hear people crying. I wonder if we're crying. I wonder if we're waiting for God to save us. And the answer is yes. But the answer is us. Yeah, be careful when you say, here I am. In Exodus, the author says, look at the flame. It's burning this bush. What are you going to do? Moses replies with a whole host of excuses. I don't know, I got lots of excuses too. Do you have excuses? You got stuff you want to kind of like put between you and God to make things work out all right? Sometimes I'm like, I don't speak well. Every stand at that door and I'm in a panic because I don't like to speak in front of people. How about that one? Every Sunday I sit in that chair and I go, all right, am I going to forget this sermon? Am I prepared? Does this even matter? I got a lot of excuses. When we go to Bread of Life, people are different from me. It'd be very easy to go, I'll just serve some food and put my head back here. And God says, you're who? Did you say here I am? Well, then get over there. Get to work. God doesn't call us to do an okay job. When he speaks to Moses, Moses is really quite a fine man. Moses is a married guy, good husband, good father, good son-in-law, taking care of the sheep. God says, it's okay to be good, but I'm calling you to be great. There's this story in the Catholic tradition about the desert fathers. And these were priests, and these were like monastics who went out into the desert and lived by themselves, all alone. And so there's a story, and it's the guy's named Abbot Lot. And he goes to like the head monk who's in another place, very far away, and his name is Abbot Joseph. And he says, Abbot Joseph, I've come to you today to talk to you. He says, go ahead. He says, Father, accordingly as I'm able, I keep my little rule, my little fast, my little prayers, my little meditations, my silence, a clean heart, and a lamp candle of holiness lit. What more shall I do? The elder rose up and replied, pointed to the heavens and says, why not become all flame? Why are you playing small? If you remember that movie just recently about Moses, right? It's Exodus, God and Kings, which is very cinematically cool. I'm not so sure how theologically accurate, but there's this time, right, where Moses meets God on the mountain, and God's a little boy. And Moses trapped in the mud, which probably signifies how often we're all trapped in our own mud, has the here I am moment. And God says, and what are you? Who are you? And Moses says, after all he's been through, and we know the background of this, we know Charlton Heston, right? We know Christian Bale. I'm a shepherd. And God says, oh, I don't need a shepherd. I need a gentleman. God recognizes that playing small is not serving anyone, including ourselves. God's call to us when we answer, here I am, is not here I am, I'll give you my lackluster performance. When God calls to us and we say, here I am, God calls for our greatness. And now it's easy to look in the mirror and go, me? I'm great. And the point today, and the point of Exodus is, yes, you are. God's not asking you to change. God's saying, I love you just the way you are. You are perfect just the way you are. I'm going to craft you to do the work that I need. And it's going to be a little awkward. Because you know what happens when Moses returns, right? There's a big fanfare, right? The band's playing, the people are singing, this and that. Pharaoh's like, come on in, take them all out, be my guest. Nope. When Moses presses on the satiated, satisfied lives of everybody in that moment in Egypt, what does Pharaoh say? I want you to make bricks, and I ain't giving you any straw. That's That's the reception we are going to get. When we choose to stop playing and start playing great. When we choose to stop just lighting the candle and go on fire. When we feel like God calls us to do something and we do it and we're all in, God's going to be happy. God's going to be saying, I like what I see. But the world's going to say, thanks for making the bricks without any power. This is an uphill battle. Christ says, you take your cross and follow me. Isn't like, well, let me get an easy cross. You got something in the 5-pound range I can throw on real quick? Maybe the 10-pound range? But not 30 and 40 pounds. I can't carry that heavy cross. Yahweh, the God of all things, who knows you by name and loves you, says, yes, you can. The God who knows you infinitely forever says, please don't play small.